From WHQR Public Media, this is the Newsroom. I'm Ben Schachman. Thanks for listening to this special edition for the 2025 Wilmington City Council election. This year, there are 3 open seats on council, and we have 8 candidates, including 6 challengers and 2 incumbents. We also have 3 candidates for mayor, including our incumbent mayor. While the city council race is technically nonpartisan, the local Democratic and Republican parties do play a role in supporting candidates. And for city council, we have 3 Republican candidates, 1 unaffiliated candidate, and 4 Democratic candidates, although the county Democratic Party implemented a straw poll to narrow its support to just 3 of those candidates, and 1 of the 2 Democrats running for mayor. And we'll have information on all of that on our show page. On today's show, we're interviewing Democratic challenger J.C. Lyle, a longtime affordable housing advocate and former member of the City of Wilmington's Planning Commission. We'll ask her a host of questions drawn from listeners and readers and our Community Agenda program. All right, J.C. Lyle, candidate for Wilmington City Council, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
All right, so before we get into policy stuff, I want to give you a chance to tell everyone just a little bit about yourself.
Great, thank you. I have been living here since 1996 and have done lots of public service since then. My profile usually says her decades-long track record of public service. That makes me sound old, so I just say 1996 I moved here, and I volunteered for a lot of housing organizations. There's so many great nonprofits in town, and housing just became my love because of the impact it has on the rest of a person's life, and a lot of different social issues that impact the whole community, really. So eventually I found my way into the nonprofit sector as a profession, and the highlight of my career was serving 15 years as a CEO for Warm NC. And we helped people with home repairs, whether that was from the hurricanes or just deferred maintenance. We helped folks who couldn't afford it otherwise, a lot of seniors, working families, military veterans, and that was just really impactful on the rest of my service work, and it was an honor to be able to grow that organization from serving 44 households a year to over 400. So ready to keep serving our community in those impactful ways.
All right. Before we get to policy, and housing is going to be up top, so get ready. We are asking all the candidates if they're affiliated with the party, which party, and why. I know these are nonpartisan elections, but it's one of the top questions we get, so we just ask all the candidates.
Okay, great. Yes, it is a nonpartisan race, which I like about that. The parties are pretty involved, and the Democratic Party has endorsed me, which I'm very proud of. The Democratic Party reflects a lot of my values, my social values.
All right. So this won't surprise you. When we go out into the community and ask people what's top on their mind for issues in the city, affordable housing is top of that list every single time. So I know you've spent a lot of time working in this field. You were just talking about it. But what is your take on affordable housing? Where do you think the city should be going with this?
Well, affordable housing and workforce housing specifically really impacts everything else in our community. So it should be at the top of everyone's minds, and it is at the top of the conversations. Before Hurricane Florence, it was hard to even get anybody to say the words affordable housing, but that really has changed in the past 6 or 7 years. And folks who from economic development and folks focused on healthcare, everybody is looking at housing because it provides a foundation for the rest of your life. So that is the way in to a lot of other social issues and making an impact on those.
Are there things you think the city should be doing more of? Are there things the city is doing right now you think are maybe less effective?
The city has some great programs for homeowners and landlords to kind of help put their properties in a place that is sustainable financially and repair-wise. So those programs I want to see continue to be funded and maybe even grown over time. Some of our funding for those comes from the federal government, so we'll see how that changes over time. But here in the city, we can kind of set our own course. We're a little cocoon from some of the things that are happening all around us. So those are some ways to plug in, impact the landlords and the homeowners directly, and look at the ways that we can bring down the cost of housing overall in the community.
So I want to ask about a related issue, sort of at the most extreme end of the housing spectrum, is homelessness. Most of the experts we've talked to discuss homelessness as as being a housing issue, although it's also a mental health issue, and there's sort of a Venn diagram of things here.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on this? What do you think the city's role, if anything, should be, and what would you like to see the city do?
Well, in general, the role of the government is to take care of things that aren't really handled by the market and that are important to society. And homelessness falls into both of those categories. To take care of folks that are here in our city is a special place to be. We have a special calling to take care of folks who are moving here and folks who have been here for quite a long time. We have day shelters. We have a lot of nonprofits that focus on housing issues. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can partner in ways that make sense because we're leveraging, now when we leverage nonprofits, we're leveraging their dollars, including public dollars that are donated to them and also their volunteers. So that makes our city money go a lot further.
In terms of, some of the suggestions, whether that's, I think there's a spectrum here. On the one end, you've got efforts to maybe criminalize urban camping, and on the other end, you've got suggestions that the city put significantly more money into the issue. Do you think the city's approach should be like legislative or putting in funding?
Well, we can't really law enforce our way out of this issue. It's important to identify the problem, the root problem of some of the unhoused population. So making camping illegal is not going to solve a problem. It may even make it worse. I mean, can you imagine just you have nowhere to go and it's unlawful for you to sleep where you are. It's almost like it's illegal for you to exist, and that's really sad. Like Wilmington is better than that.
A related issue here is development. I'm talking about, and you know quite a bit about this. So one thing we hear from folks all the time, sort of irrespective of political party, is a frustration with what is at least perceived by some people as like unchecked development. I think people have brought up issues like the clear cutting of the space for Centerpoint on Eastwood and Military Cutoff, or just the sort of rapid development of multifamily apartment complexes. We know that bringing units online in a market is one way to sort of drive down the overall cost of living. So, but no one seems to agree on how to manage development, where to put it, and how to ameliorate people's sense that it's too much too fast. So how do you think about this issue?
I served over 6 years on the Wilmington Planning Commission, and I've heard a lot of concerns about how our growth is impacting traffic and environmental issues and housing affordability, certainly. And the Planning Commission and City Council have taken that to heart and changed codes. The clear cutting you're describing at Centerpoint and what happened at the Haven, they couldn't happen under today's codes. So there have been a lot of strides toward preserving our tree canopy. It's disappearing at about 1% a year. And we're all on alert. All the city council members understand this and are working toward getting more funding for our urban forestry master plan and holding on to our tree city designation.
Yeah, there was recently, I think it was a federal grant that was cut that was going to go towards sort of helping to restore that urban canopy. That is another question we get is about green space, and that includes tree canopy, but also public spaces. In the past, we've seen both the city and the county show some interest in preserving what little green space is left inside the Wilmington city limits. Is that something you think is taxpayer money well spent?
Absolutely. Even in the urban forestry master plan, they did a survey of residents in the city, and 96% of our folks who were surveyed in the city said yes, preserving the trees are worth the budget number. And our tree city designation asks for $2 a year per person in our budget. And I think that the public is okay with even a little more than that, $2 a year. So that is definitely where we need to invest some public funds because, again, it's not going to be handled by the market. It's not really profitable to build a park. So those are things that the city can take care of for our population.
I want to ask about a different kind of development, and that's economic development. So and this could mean a lot of different things. So I want to give you some examples. We've got sort of direct financial incentives, things like the PPD program or the Live Oak incentive package, and then you've got sort of softer touch issues where the city is working as a facilitator to sort of engage with businesses that might want to come here, and maybe that's not a direct financial incentive. Maybe it's just sort of bringing them to Wilmington and showing them around, and hoping that they will. Think that this is a good place to set up shop. I know the Wells Fargo golf tournament, the box seats at Live Oak, those are all part of that kind of approach. What would your approach to economic development be, and what kind of businesses would you like to see come to Wilmington?
One of the things that is happening that the city does not have to put a lot of effort into is that businesses and people are moving here. So, as you know, I look at everything through the lens of housing. And what I would like to focus on with economic development, at least in the short term, is helping the folks who already live here qualify and train and get the jobs that are coming here. So about 2/3 of the jobs that come here bring new people. So new people are moving here for about 2/3 of the jobs. When you see that in the news that we have 1,200 new jobs coming, about 2/3 of those folks are going to be moving here from other places. So we need to get our infrastructure in place to catch up with some of the great work that's being done on the economic development side and focus really on the people who are already living here and making sure that the economic development, economic growth is benefiting everyone.
So along those lines, when we talk about economic development, you moved here in 96, I moved here in the early 2000s. We've both seen it grow in extraordinary ways. And there's more affluence here than there's been, I think, in the past. But there's also some discrepancies, right? The rising tide has not lifted all boats. And so I think there's some pretty profound economic inequality. And in Wilmington, that often looks like racial inequality. So I know I've asked you this question before at the Democratic Forum, but I'll give it another crack. What do you think the city's role, if anything, is in addressing that kind of economic inequality and racial inequality?
Well, certainly we have programs in place that look for minority and women-owned businesses as our contractors. So those are some more direct ways and more intimate ways we can work with some of the businesses that are working toward a more socially equitable economy. So those are programs I'd want us to see us continue. These issues were not created in one generation, and they're not going to be solved in one generation. But by putting our group effort together, partnering with other organizations that are already working on this, and making sure that it stays at the top of mind, no matter what is happening in other parts of the country, it's a big part of what we need to be focused on moving forward.
All right, I want to pivot to the issue of public safety. So we've got we're recording this on August 4th. So sometime in the very near future, we expect to hear the announcement of a new chief of police for the Wilmington Police Department. And for many people, it feels like an opportunity to either reinforce things the police department is doing or change course on maybe how it recruits, the policing style. So what are your thoughts on the police department as it is and where you'd like to see it go?
Our police force works really hard to keep us safe, and they will never be appreciated or compensated enough for their sacrifices. We can do better than what we're doing now. The City Council did just approve a package that bumps up some of those salaries. I don't think that's going to fill all the vacancies we have on the police department right now, and that is very concerning to me moving into especially the height of hurricane season. I have a lot of experience recovering from hurricanes here and Hurricane Katrina, and I know how important those emergency responders are. And so that's a huge issue in the back of my mind just for risk management, but also day-to-day policing. Folks shouldn't have to be forced to serve mandatory overtime when they're already giving up so much and taking so much risk for the community. So getting the resources behind the police department so that we can, and all the first responders, so that we can get high quality, world-class force together. And it costs so much more to train a new person. It costs almost $100,000 in a year to train a new person to become a law enforcement officer. Why aren't we doing more to attract people who already have experience. So I want people who are on the force in Chicago and Denver and all over the country to look at Wilmington's package and say, I want to work there. Right now, I think you all even reported on the Police Benevolence Association survey earlier this year. Mm-hmm. Only about 7% of the people in the force recommend working on the Wilmington Police Department. How are we going to fill those vacancies with that?
Yeah, and I think, that idea of trying to recruit the best and retain the best, I mean, that to your point, that also goes for the Wilmington Fire Department, I should say that. And it often feels like a bidding war between counties and municipalities. We see even smaller towns like Boiling Spring Lakes or Leland outbid the city of Wilmington for officers. So, I mean, do you think it's just a matter of financial compensation, or do you think there are maybe other ways to keep first responders, here in Wilmington, the community they serve?
That's huge. And I have 15 years of nonprofit management and leadership experience and had a very low attrition rate because of the culture that we created on our team. So that's a big part of it, creating a culture where people enjoy coming to work, feel the camaraderie. When you're in your interview with Captain Fanta, some of the things he talked about in his early days that were really meaningful to him was the kind of the feeling of family in the department and opportunities for advancement, that his supervisors were looking at him in ways he didn't even know he saw that, that he had that in him. He didn't see that in himself, but they promoted him and moved him into leadership positions. And those are the kinds of, they're just like every other business, and as far as what motivates people to work. And I always look at everything through the lens of housing. I know I sound like a broken record, but helping them with that issue. The first responders are in my mind and heart when I do my affordable housing advocacy. Most of the fire department, most of the police officers, they can't afford to live in the city. But those of us who live in the city, they'll come and risk their lives to put out our house fire or help us with any kind of crime that we have. And so we need to be doing better. Maybe we can put some packages in place for folks that move here to work on our force. Say, hey, if you're still here in 2 years, here's some down payment assistance on a house. We want to keep them here. If they're buying property, they're going to stay. So
I know Chief Donnie Williams at one point had suggested a grant request to the endowment that would have done something like that. So maybe that's an idea we come back to. But yeah, to your point, I mean, it's not a business, but it is kind of like a business. Culture eats strategy all day. Yeah. All right. So one last question about public policy, and that's public transportation. And I won't blame you if you also view this through the lens of housing, because I think it is interconnected.
Absolutely.
So WAVE has had its ups and downs over the last 15 years. The county's been in, the county's been out. Federal funding is always kind of a question mark. And the city has shouldered locally a lot of the weight of keeping public transportation running. How do you feel about where WAVE is right now? And then where, if anywhere else, would you like to see it go and do?
I'd like to see more vouchers so that there are more riders. Everybody that I know about, they're complain about how they see empty buses riding around the city. And the reasons for that are sometimes there are people who can't even afford to ride the bus. And so let's help them get on the bus. The bus is already running. Let's make sure that as we plan ahead, we're getting the right size vehicles and vehicles that are environmentally friendly and economically friendly, so that they cost a little less to operate. I mean, maybe one day we'll have driverless buses. Who knows? But being open to those changes that will make us stronger overall.
All right. Well, those are our policy questions. I want to give you a chance. Anything else we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about, or anything else you just want to let voters know?
Sure. Well, it's always going to come back to housing if you give me a microphone and an opportunity to pick my topic. And one of the things we talked about earlier was the incredible development. And when I moved here in 96, Military Cutoff and Eastwood were both 2-lane roads that you had to sit in traffic for like an hour to get to the beach. And the DOT responded to that. A lot of the roads that people are concerned about are DOT roads. So it is DOT's responsibility to widen them. And because it's public dollars, DOT doesn't build a bunch of roads and hope people come drive on them. They build roads when it hurts. They build roads when it's painful to get through the town on their roads. So that's why it feels painful in traffic. The apartments close to services are actually going to help that. It looks like we have all these apartments. Well, you're seeing them more because they're near services, and that keeps people on the road less. So if it takes you 2 minutes to get to work or 20 minutes to get to work or 2 hours to get to work, you're going to be on the roads and creating traffic during those intervals. So getting people closer to services is a huge strategy for that, for helping alleviate some of the traffic conditions. Apartments don't pop up just to scatter the landscape with tall buildings. They come because the people are coming here. So if you can imagine how the price of housing being even higher, then let's stop building apartments. If that's just a basic law of supply and demand is at work here. So hopefully over time, as we catch up with our infrastructure for the incredible number of folks who are moving here, that will alleviate over time.
And I know I've asked you previously, where you would put density, because we got to put more apartments somewhere. And there are a lot of places where people, feel like it's incompatible with their neighborhood character, I believe is the legislative language. So your answer was basically that let's put the density near the services and let the infrastructure dictate where we put houses.
Yeah, that's a huge strategy, but there's no magic bullet. Our former planning director, Glenn Harbeck, used to say, there's no magic bullet. We need it all. We need, in the new codes, knew we needed to reduce the barriers for putting an accessory dwelling unit on your property, a tiny home. So we changed the codes to make that easier. We have given a lot of other incentives to increase density in the places that it matters and the places that work, and not increase the density in places that are a little more environmentally sensitive. And I've continued to work on this issue even since I left Planning Commission. I recently put in a request to make it easier for folks in the historic district to turn their big homes into duplexes. So we can add a unit here, a unit there, and kind of help resolve some of the supply issues without creating new footprint or creating new zoning districts that are multifamily.
All right. Well, is there anything else?
I have one more thing, because I've served 7 years almost now on the state's Housing Trust Fund Board, the board that oversees all the state money that is set aside by the General Assembly to leverage private money and to put money where it's going to do the most good to help people in housing crisis. So I've been on that board for 7 years, and it's time for us to have our own housing trust fund here in Wilmington, where we have a lot more flexibility with the funds, and we can put money where it matters for our community. So that is one of my biggest goals when I hit the ground running on my day one in City Council.
All right. Well, J.C. Lyle, candidate for City Council, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben.
That was our interview with challenger J.C. Lyle, who's running for a seat on Wilmington's City Council. I'm Ben Schockman. Thanks for listening to this special edition of the Newsroom, and check out our other candidate interviews at WHQR.org or wherever you get the Newsroom as a podcast.